Hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Catie Scudera,
And I'm Jenna Crawford.
and we're the ministers serving First Parish in Needham Unitarian Universalist. And we welcome you yet again to one of our Zoom couch conversations where we discuss the monthly theme at First Parish. This month, our theme that we're weaving into our worship services and our lifespan religious exploration and our small groups is kindness and empathy, which I think is extremely fitting for the month of May because it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I don't know about you, Jenna, but for me, one of the toughest people for me to extend kindness to is myself.
Yes, me too. I I feel similarly. It's a practice I have to be really intentional about. Um, and I've been thinking a lot about compassion fatigue this year. And it's actually something that as religious professionals we talk a lot about. And I was first introduced to in the hospital that I did my hospital chaplaincy training in. Actually, we did a sort of CPE day where all the regional hospitals came together, and this material was a didactic from Cheryl McDevitt. She's the CPE educator at Beverly Hospital. And she talked about, well, and the reason, I guess, to back up for a second, that I think it's important to talk about not just among religious professionals, but for all of us, is that we've been living through a global trauma. And in church, we talk a lot about empathy, kindness, and compassion. And so the two of those together can lead to compassion fatigue and burnout, and more than just kind of people in the helping professions this year. And the question that we asked in that training that I went to with her was, can we train compassion to boost compassion fatigue resilience? Which is a really interesting question. And her research showed that people can learn calmer, more balanced responses to suffering. There are a couple of different kind of trainings you can do to do that. One being compassion meditation training, intentionally cultivating positive wishes to understand and relieve the suffering of others, reduced distress in the long term when witnessing someone else's suffering. And the other things we talk a lot about are the ABCs of compassion, fatigue, resilience, which I find really helpful. Awareness, balance, and connection. So awareness being aware of your own needs, your limits, your resources, your emotions, and knowing your personal renewal zones. Balance being maintaining balance among our life activities like work, play, and rest, and making sure we take time to pursue joyful activities, which is why one of the reasons why Reverend Catie and I started doing moments of joy on social media this year. And connection. So ensuring we have maintained strong connections with ourselves, others, and the bigger picture. So I found that training and her work to be really helpful even before the pandemic in the work that Reverend Catie and I do, but this year, even more so.
Gosh, and that's okay. So the ABC is actually that not just like that's what is that called? Uh,
Um,
the memory device.
Mnemonic or acronym?
Thank you. All of those things. It's awareness, balance, and connection. That's
Mnemonic.
mnemonic. I love things like that because then I can actually remember them.
Yes.
It's what I've been thinking about in terms of kindness and empathy. As it's been such a challenging year in the pandemic because even for folks who are not in traditionally helping professions, I feel like all of us have had to be more helpful and more
Right.
understanding of one another and ourselves this year. And it's exhausting. And so one thing I bring up actually regularly at the congregation, people who've been in First Parish for a while have probably heard me quote this part of scripture before. I think a lot about the prophet Jesus, how he said to his followers that you can't love your neighbor as you love, like you have to, if you're going to love your neighbor as you love yourself, like you actually have to love yourself, as if your love for yourself is not very strong, like how are you going to offer that kind of love to your neighbor? And that
Right.
was part of his great commandments to his followers. And I actually found I found a quote from Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, who himself actually is finds Jesus as a prophet very inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
He's written a couple of great books about uh, Buddha and Christ, and he has a beautiful, beautiful quote about loving kindness. I'm going to share. The first element of true love is loving kindness. The essence of loving kindness is being able to offer happiness. You can be the sunshine for another person. You can't offer happiness until you have it for yourself. So build a home inside by accepting yourself and learning to love and heal yourself. Learn how to practice mindfulness, or what the ABCs, awareness, in such a way that you can create monuments of happiness and joy for your own nourishment. Then you will have something to offer to the other person. And so I take these two great religious leaders, their advice, and try to take it to heart. I didn't have a neat mnemonic for it until you mentioned it, but thinking about, it's so important for us to take care of ourselves in the best ways we can. I know that self-care during a global pandemic seems a little ridiculous because nothing's going to stop the pandemic. Like, these are all like kind of psychological fixes to a sociological problem, but it is so important for us to try and take care of ourselves and show grace and compassion for ourselves, because the stressors of the outside world are so great right now. Really, not only because of the pandemic, but we also have an epidemic of police brutality and gun violence that's been ongoing for years, and it's still happening, even though we're all inside, physically distanced. There are so many really awful, stressful things happening in our world today. And so to be able to help change the world and to offer love, compassion, and understanding to others, we start by offering love, compassion, and understanding to ourselves. They feed each other. So that can be part of our challenge in this month of kindness and empathy, is not only to make our society and our individual interactions more kind and more empathetic, but also to direct that compassion inwards.
Yeah. Oh, I really appreciate you mentioning the layers of traumatization that people are undergoing this year. It's too much for folks to bear. It's and you're reading Thich Nhat Hanh reminded me. I have another quote that I was introduced to a number of years ago, the poem by Jack Gilbert called A Brief for the Defense. This is just a small part of it. But it's sort of like a case for joy as being radical and joy as resistance. So he writes, "We must risk delight. We can do without pleasure, but not delight, not enjoyment. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. To make injustice the only measure of our attention is to praise the devil." Sort of an interesting last line. And remembering kind of that we have to keep our eyes on both balls, right? And to not sort of evolve into the sort of like escapism or the like everything is okay, the sort of Pollyanna hope, but to have a kind of joy that's measured and that has our eyes on the situation in both directions, if that makes sense.
Well, to lose focus on joy would really squelch our imagination for, well, why do we fight for injustice? Well, we're trying to make more joy and equity in the world, that more opportunity for joy for all people and all living beings. Again, if you're swinging too far the other direction, only looking at injustice, it's not very nourishing, and it doesn't help us think about where we're going. Why are we doing this work? That's a great little selection from that poem. And so I'm curious for all the folks watching, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or somehow somewhere else, for you all, what are you doing to cultivate joy in your life? Do you think that you could implement the ABCs of taking care of yourself? And for you, is it a greater challenge to have compassion for yourself or have compassion for others? We would love to hear from you. You can either comment again wherever you're watching, or you can send us an email. Our email addresses are available on uuneedham.org, our congregation's website. And we hope that we'll see you again in June for our June Couch conversation. Thanks so much for watching today.
See you next month.
Bye-bye.